I didn't know they made vodka in Fiji. It's crazy. Hey, so first off, the Vets Club wants to thank Storytellers for putting this all together. Thank you guys. Round of applause for it doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of hard work and at least 2 emails from myself. So, all right. Hey, so I'm Josh Auerbach. I am the co-vice president of Vets Club. Very prestigious, I know. But prior to coming here to Wharton, I served for 9 years in the United States Army. I still serve as a reserve military officer, so 2 days a week, sleep easy. But I think my biggest accomplishment is that this is my 2nd year emceeing this event. So, yeah. If you do 3, you get a bathrobe. It's pretty badass. So. All right, so since it's my 2nd year emceeing, so I know a couple things about this event. Number 1, you should have the podium in the center. Number 2, you please keep what is said here by our speakers, and if I have a slip up by your MC, in this room. Some of these stories are. I'll let you laugh. Some of these stories are pretty intimate, so just keep that in this room. Another thing, pictures are fine. It's fine to tag that picture with the Storytellers. I'm 30. I don't know how Instagram works, but like, it's fine to tag that picture with the Wharton Storytellers. But please, no video. So speaking of which, pictures, if we could just get one of me right now. Lindsay, we good? All right. And last thing is please be respectful. You know, some of these stories are tough to tell. Our 6 speakers are very brave for getting up here and speaking about their experiences. So just, not that I have to say that, but be respectful. So the Wharton Veterans Club is 26 members. I don't know. Moshe, you get your dues in yet? Okay. 126 members. From all U.S. military services as well as 9 different countries, and we're united by a common theme, and that is public service. So regardless of our backgrounds, where we came from, experience we've had, we all served something greater than ourselves. And anyone who's done that knows that service is a privilege, and that's why we're so excited to share some of our stories with you all tonight. You'll see some flyers around, etc. The theme of this week, of Vets Week, we get a whole week, that's awesome, is United Through Service. All of us have continued to make service a part of our lives. And we're very proud to do so. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Some of us were asked to deploy to dangerous places as part of our service in the United States military. Mike Sorrentino, not the situation, was asked to do so, and he's going to speak about that tonight. So, Mike.
Tough act to follow. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Where my hogs at? Show me some. When I was a little boy, I used to cry when my mom would drop me off at school because I was going to miss her so much during the day. So to calm me down, she would touch my chest and she would say, "Mikey, it's okay. Know that I'm holding your hand in my heart." I say this because going to school for the first time, whether that's college or kindergarten, maybe your first day on a new job, these are all experiences that we've all had. But tonight I'm here to talk about something only a small percentage of us have experienced. A few other times my mom metaphysically held my hand. Those are the times I went to war. Prior to business school, I was a Green Beret in the United States Army, and I spent about 22 months of my career in Afghanistan. I'm not trying to say that I've had the most experience of the toughest deployments, or seen the most combat, because I haven't. I just thought that as I've pondered ways to meaningfully relay my experiences from my time in service to my peers at Wharton, after reading a book called What It's Like to Go to War, I thought my own version of something similar might be useful. Admittedly, I have a very negative opinion on how military deployments are portrayed to the American public. but we'll get to that later. In some ways, it's just this thing that's burned in the background of our culture for about 2 decades, and it's impacted just a small piece of the population. In my experience, going to war, and for that matter, coming back, it's not what you see on TV or in movies. For me, it boils down to a handful of things. It's anxiousness, it's administrative, it's boring, it's strange, it feels fake, it's rewarding, it's addictive, and it means coming home. Going to war is anxiousness. Prior to my first deployment at the end of the summer of 2012, I remember feeling ready but anxious about what was to come. People talk about this idea of imposter syndrome, about being exposed as something that you thought you were but you're really not. And going to war is like that, but it's jacked up on steroids. Because it's something you've prepared for your entire adult life, but you don't know what's going to happen or how you will react when the bullets are for real. In the months prior to that deployment, 3 of my West Point classmates were tragically killed in action in Afghanistan. So putting that into context, it's really hard to put into words the anxiousness that I felt in going to war for the first time. On a stop on the way over, in the tent where my platoon was sleeping was another platoon that was on their way home. Their platoon leader that they were talking about was a year behind me at West Point, and he had also been killed that summer, doing the same mission I was headed into theater to perform. In these moments of tension, or in my case, extreme personal anxiety, leaders are incredibly important. While still in transit, I bumped into my supervisor from when I was a cadet at West Point. This was a man who I had a tremendous amount of respect for. And as I walked by him and I heard a very excited, "Mike Sorrentino," followed by a hug and a handshake, I could just feel that anxiety start to melt away. Because this person I respected so much was talking to me in a way where he was clearly confident in my abilities to essentially do what he had in part trained me to do. That's a real leader. Going to war is anxiousness. Going to war is administrative. These types of things don't look great in movies. But before you go to war, there are a lot of boxes to be checked, lots of standing in lines to confirm varying forms of readiness, from vaccinations to pay entitlements. I think a story that probably captures this combination of anxiousness and administrativeness from my life was before my second deployment, when I was a Special Forces team leader. We were heading to Helmand Province, which is historically one of the more dangerous locations in Afghanistan, at a time when the situation really called for an aggressive posture. My parents came out to see me in Colorado the weekend before I left. And being a little bit older with a little more money in my bank account than when I was 24, I remember waiting for my mom to leave my house with my sister. I grabbed my father and I said, "Hey, Pops, we gotta take care of something real quick. I need you to sign here as the executor of my will." He sighed heavily, he said, "Okay," and he signed it. And I put it in a binder with some other paperwork, like my funeral burial preferences, some powers of attorney, and my life insurance policy. And when I went to hand it to him, he just hugged me. He hugged me as hard as I've ever been hugged in my life. Like one of those hugs where I could feel his hands touching on the back of my back as he pulled me into his chest. Maybe like he was trying to make this mental imprint of how my body felt in case he didn't get that opportunity again. And he didn't say anything. 62-year-old man signing the will of his 29-year-old son. Going to war is administrative. Going to war is very boring, until all of a sudden it isn't. Not just in the transit times, but sometimes in the actual day-to-day of doing missions. I think there's this perception that everything is just crazy all of the time. And that this can depend where you're going and what you're doing, but from my experience, nothing could be farther from the truth. For every mission I've been on where things got interesting, I've been on 10 missions where almost nothing happened. Hours of nothing. Hours of sitting on a roof being cold and wet. Hours of driving on the same roads over and over again. Every bend, every pothole, 15 miles an hour. Looking out the windows for indicators of roadside bombs. And just really trying hard to pay attention because you're just completely and utterly and mind-numbingly bored. Sitting in the safety and comfort of the base, in the Joint Operations Center which I ran, as the Chief of Operations for the Special Operations Task Force in Afghanistan, for hours, literally nothing happening. On the radio, "Mike, this is Nick. We're good." And it stays that way, until it's so far from something you could describe as boring. Until the radio transmission I just read is the same person, but they're talking louder, and they're talking faster, and they're excited, and there's machine gun fire kicking off in the background, and they're requesting a medical evacuation for someone that you know well, someone who in your mind is this physical embodiment of everything a special operations soldier is supposed to be. and now they're suddenly a W amputee and possibly bleeding to death. And while you're not there on the ground, everyone around you wants answers, and they want them from you, and they want them now. What's the timeline? What are his vitals? Why can't the team get their comms up? So as a leader, it's this constant balance. What's okay? What is the balance between morale and discipline? In a world where you can go from barely staying awake to making decisions and communicating information with literal life and death implications at the drop of a hat. Going to war is boring. Going to war is strange. In the same way that going to war is boring until it isn't, being in a war zone in the 21st century is at times simply odd. On a mission in February of 2018, for a brief period following our arrival at the target, we met stiff enemy resistance. Without getting into detail, it was a very precarious situation for a short time, and things easily could have gotten much, much worse. For his actions that night, one of my teammates was awarded the Silver Star. We unfortunately had several casualties amongst our partnered Afghans that night. And after visiting them at the hospital when we got back, thankfully they were recovering and doing okay. After that, sometime in the next 36-ish hours, was the Super Bowl, when my beloved New England Patriots lost to our hometown Philadelphia Eagles. And I couldn't give a shit. I couldn't switch my mind off what had happened that previous night to what was now a few relaxing hours with the guys in the camp, enjoying the game. I just couldn't bring myself to care. And for those in the crowd that know me well, when it comes to sports, this is completely out of character. In other situations, which for me was less of an issue personally, it's the ability of the immediacy of a FaceTime call with a loved one upon returning back to base, when you've had a night or a few days that you know you'll be carrying with you for a while. How does one compartmentalize this reality to put a smile on for those at home? Going to war is strange. Going to war feels fake. This could be a compliment to my training, but when you're in an actual operational environment and everything around you is 100% real, it feels fake. It's in talks with locals where you drive to some village, you sit down for a conversation with the local police, where you talk to some elders about what's going on, what they're hearing, and you drink some tea. All of that can be difficult to discern from times where you do things like this in practice while at home. Especially because from a cultural standpoint, places like rural Afghanistan are so different than how most people live in Western society that things feel like a movie set. Like being inside someone's house and they just have a cow in their house. Like literal livestock just inside their home. Or a grenade just sticking out of the wall, right next to where you're sitting down and talking to someone and drinking some tea. Like it was a Christmas wreath that somebody forgot to take down. Like finding a German national with a red beard who speaks almost perfect English, that no one from the German government has heard from in over 4 years, hiding in a random hut in the middle of nowhere. Even in the more harrowing moments, when things are unfolding very quickly, in the most serious of sense, the brain doesn't have time to break down what's happening around you into the tangible meaning of what is actually happening around you. Like looking at the vehicle you were just riding in that's been blown up, and seeing the seat that you were sitting in that's folded up from the explosion so that the base of the seat is almost touching the back of the seat. You don't put together what might have happened if you just decided not to get out of the truck. You're glad your soldiers are okay, you smile, and you carry on. And in that sense, going to war feels fake. Going to war feels rewarding. My grandfather used to say it only takes one oh shit to mess up 10 attaboys. And when you're at war, this is absolutely true. But the attaboys are incredibly satisfying. In November of 2017, we ran a mission into northern Helmand. We had learned that the Taliban were holding up to 30 prisoners in a district center. As we approached the main building, the enemy fighters fled like the cowards they were. But in so doing, without resistance, my teammates pulled 18 Afghan civilians out of a basement where they were chained in shackles at their feet. They were locals from the province, detained for crimes, like using their cell phones. The youngest amongst them was maybe 13 to 15 years old. Getting them back to our base and checked by US doctors and fed felt incredible. My commander also called me the next day to congratulate the team on a successful mission. In Army Special Forces, our motto is De Oppresso Liber, which is Latin for to free the oppressed. The call with my commander went something along the lines of, that's a fucking De Oppresso Liber mission if there ever was one, Mike. Let the boys know I'm proud of them. Going to war is rewarding. Going to war is addicting. And I don't mean this in the sense that at the end of every time I was personally deployed, I wasn't asking, hey, what flight is my replacement on? Or counting down the days and doing mental math until I was drinking my first beer. You really are looking forward to this simple return to normalcy. When I say going to war is addicting, I mean this more in the sense that in some of these deployments, you are rewarded with an intense closeness with the people you are working with. Very rarely, and in few other professions, do you get the opportunity to look at your colleagues and put the amount of trust in each other as you get to when you're deployed. Being in the military is also a profession where you could spend your entire career practicing your craft without ever being presented the opportunity to perform it. Like a banker who never closed a transaction, a lawyer who never argued a case, or a consultant who never did whatever it is that My commander came to see me at my camp one time, and he said to me, you have to cherish every day you're here, Mike. And while also, to some extent, you hate every day, he wasn't wrong. When you're deployed in some positions, you're given this intense and unique amount of power. And in the moment your replacement comes and gets settled into the position, and you slowly hand off the reins, there is this unmistakable feeling of loss that pairs with the excitement of going home. When your phone was ringing off the hook for you for months, when people constantly needed your opinion, when certain people needed your influence to make things happen. And suddenly all of these things, they made up your consciousness in every waking moment of every second of every day for months are no longer your problem. When you're no longer the man in the arena, you feel it. Going to war is addicting. Going to war means coming back. As I mentioned at the outset, this is the area where I believe the media does the most disservice to reality. While in some people's experience, coming home is that storybook, videotape reunion at a baseball game that you see on the morning talk shows or a YouTube clip. In my experience, it's not like that. Essentially, you just go home. Usually there's a little pomp and circumstance, like your unit's commander standing there to shake everyone's hand when they get off the aircraft. After my second deployment, I was changing positions and headed to run the operations section of our organization. One of our unit's senior leaders said to me, as I was literally getting off the plane, stepping onto American soil for the first time in months, Mike, when are you getting down to the shop? We gotta start getting ready. This was in reference to our next deployment that was a short 10 months away. It was said lighthearted and with a smile, but serious at the same time. But then after that, with a head full of thoughts about whatever just transpired over the course of the last 6, 7, 9 months, you just go home. And honestly, in my experience, this is kind of the best part. You just get in your truck, you put on some music, maybe throw in a dip, you stop at the liquor store on the way home, and for about a week, every day feels like Christmas. Because all this basic normalcy is suddenly back at your fingertips. Going to war means coming back. So in my experience, that's what it's like to go to war. Thank you.